In the small town of Ashbrook, there lived a man named Samuel Gray. Samuel was an ordinary man leading an unremarkable life, until one fateful night when he experienced something that would change his life forever. It began on a stormy night, with lightning streaking across the sky and thunder shaking the ground. Samuel was in his small, dimly lit apartment, trying to find solace in a book, but his mind was restless, unable to focus on the words before him. As he lay in bed, exhausted from the day's work, he suddenly felt a strange sensation wash over him. It was as if his body was being pulled in different directions, and his surroundings blurred into a hazy mist. He closed his eyes, hoping that it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. However, when he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a place that was both familiar and utterly alien. Samuel stood in the midst of a surreal dreamscape, surrounded by towering trees made of sinew and veins, their leaves pulsating with an otherworldly light. The ground beneath his feet felt soft and squishy, like flesh, and the air was thick with a sickly sweet scent. In the distance, he saw monstrous shapes moving, their outlines shifting and morphing as if they were made of ever-changing forms. As he ventured further into this nightmarish realm, Samuel encountered creatures that defied description. Some had heads resembling human organs, their eyes bulging and mouths twisted into grotesque smiles. Others had limbs made of veins and arteries, moving with an unsettling fluidity. Samuel's heart raced as he tried to make sense of the nightmare he had stumbled into, but the more he tried to understand, the more his mind rebelled against the sheer impossibility of it all. Days turned into nights, and Samuel found himself trapped in this dream world, his sense of time slipping away like sand through his fingers. He tried to communicate with the monstrous inhabitants of this place, but their language was a cacophony of whispers and guttural sounds that grated on his ears. He realized that he was not alone. There were other lost souls like him, wandering aimlessly, their faces etched with despair. In this nightmare realm, Samuel's fear became a constant companion, gnawing at the edges of his sanity. He could feel the eyes of unseen creatures watching him, their gaze filled with hunger and malice. Every corner he turned, every shadow he passed, seemed to conceal a new horror, waiting to pounce and drag him into the darkness. One night, as he huddled in a makeshift shelter made from pulsating plant matter, Samuel heard a voice whispering in his mind. It was a soft, melodic voice, unlike anything he had heard before. "You are not meant to be here," the voice said, its tone filled with sadness and pity. "This is a place of nightmares, a realm born from the deepest fears of the human soul. You must find your way back before it consumes you entirely." Driven by desperation, Samuel set out on a quest to escape the nightmare world. He followed the voice's guidance, navigating through the labyrinthine landscape, avoiding the monstrous inhabitants that lurked in the shadows. Along the way, he encountered other lost souls, their eyes haunted and empty, their minds shattered by the horrors they had witnessed. As he delved deeper into the nightmare, Samuel discovered that the dream world was a reflection of his own subconscious, a manifestation of his deepest fears and insecurities. The monstrous creatures and twisted landscapes were born from the darkest corners of his mind, a distorted mirror reflecting the inner demons he had long buried. With each step he took, Samuel confronted his fears head-on, battling the monstrous manifestations of his own psyche. He faced creatures made of his guilt and shame, fought against nightmares forged from his regrets and failures. The journey was arduous, and he was pushed to the brink of despair, but he pressed on, driven by the hope of returning to the reality he once knew. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Samuel reached the heart of the nightmare realm. There, he found a colossal entity, a grotesque amalgamation of organs and limbs, its eyes glowing with malevolent intelligence. It was the embodiment of his deepest fears, the source of the nightmares that had plagued him. Summoning every ounce of courage within him, Samuel confronted the monstrous entity. He bared his soul, acknowledging his fears and weaknesses, accepting them as a part of himself. In that moment of vulnerability, something remarkable happened. The monstrous entity began to dissolve, its form unraveling like smoke in the wind. The nightmare world around him started to crumble, the pulsating trees and fleshy ground disintegrating into nothingness. With a blinding flash of light, Samuel was torn from the nightmare world and thrust back into reality. He woke up in his small apartment, drenched in sweat, his heart pounding in his chest.